I made many Streamlit tutorials here on my channel, and one question that I got asked all the time is how to style certain elements. Because when you are using Streamlit, you are a bit limited when it comes to styling the different elements like the buttons, input boxes and so on and so forth. Typically you had to do some CSS hacks and some workarounds to style your application. But with the new Streamlit release, styling your application got a whole lot easier. In this video I will show you the new feature and walk you through how to apply custom CSS to the different elements, just like you see here on my demo application. Alright, and without further ado, let us dive in. First, you want to make sure that you are using the latest version of Streamlit. You can do that by running pip install streamlit --upgrade in your command prompt or terminal. Alright, and with that in place, let me switch over to the demo application I have created for you. By the way, all the files and code are uploaded to GitHub, and you will find the link in the description below. Okay, before we dive in, let me briefly go over the different windows here. So on the right side, I've got my Streamlit application. In the middle, I have my Python file, and on the very left, I've got my style.css file. Now, this CSS file is located in my assets folder. It doesn't really matter where you place the CSS file, but in many web applications, you will usually find it inside the assets folder. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is to apply this CSS file to my Streamlit application. The way I'm doing it is by defining a function that simply reads the content of the file and places it inside the Streamlit HTML element wrapped around the style tags. Then I'm just calling this function at the top of the script. Next, I've added a simple title and subheader. Now, the interesting part I want to show you is when we scroll down to the buttons. Here I've inserted a normal Streamlit button and gave this button a key. In this case I called it green. Now, and here's the interesting part. With the latest version of Streamlit, this key is now converted to a class name that starts with stkey followed by the name of the key, and this now gets attached to that element. Now in my case, this button now has a class of stkeyGreen. This means we can target that class in our CSS file and apply any styling we want. For example, you could simply change the background color. And of course, you can also have different styles for different buttons. If you want a red button, you just need to change the class name and the background color. So in my Streamlit app, I will copy and paste the button, but this time I will name the key red. Okay, and now when I reload our application, we now have a red button as well. And that's the basic idea of this new feature. Now that you know that, you can also apply more complex CSS to your application. For example, here I also have an animated button. Just like before, I gave this button a key, and then in the CSS file I targeted that new class. In this case I use the CSS property animation, and a bit further down I also defined the pulse animation. Now if you are anything like me and you don't know much about CSS, just do what I did and ask ChatGPT for help. That's actually also how I created this demo application along with the CSS file. But while I was working on the application, I also wanted to change the font size and family of the button. However, if you try to change the font size in a button and refresh the application, you will notice that nothing has changed. To figure out why, you can use the developer tools in your browser. In Chrome, for example, just right-click on your page and you will find an option to inspect the site. And now you can click on the following icon and hover over the different elements of your application. So for the button, we can see that the background color and padding are applied correctly. But when you hover over the text, you will see that the text is actually a paragraph element within the button. So to target the text, you need to write the CSS like this. First select the class, then the parent element, so the button, and finally the child element, which is a paragraph. Inside this, you can now, for example, adjust the font, like the font size and family. Now, after saving the file and refreshing the app, you will see that the font size has changed. Okay, and next up, let me also show you how to add a hover effect to the button. So that means when I hover over the button, the background color and the font changes. To do that, you just need to specify the pseudo class, which is in this case hover. Once again, if you don't know the different pseudo classes, you can either Google it or just ask ChatGPT for help. So, and now you can specify what to change when you hover over the element. For example, here I'm changing the background color to a darker green. And I've also done the same for the button text, but here I'm changing the font color. However, there will be a small issue. When you click on the button, it stays focused and now the default Streamlit styling is applied. That means, for example, you have now a red font and also a red border. If you want to override that, you can use the focus pseudo class. As before, I've done this for the button and again for the text within the button. Now, after refreshing the application and clicking the button, you will see that the red border is gone and we still have our golden button text. Alright, now we spent quite a bit of time of styling buttons, but you can, of course, style also other elements too. For example, next I've also added a text input box and gave it the key styled input. And if you take a look at my CSS file, you can see that I've changed the border style. And here also again, when I click on the text input box, it is focused, and in that case I want to set the border to none. So now when you use the input box, here's the effect. Initially you see the green border, but as soon as you click inside, the border disappears. And when you click outside the input field, the green border comes back. Now you might be wondering how I knew that the element was called input. And to find that out, you can again inspect the element by right-clicking on the page and opening the developer tools. When you hover over the element, you will see that it's called input. So this is also how I have done it for the other elements. Alright, and with that said, let's take a look at the text area field. Here I've changed the background color, the border and the font family. So when you type something in the text area, you will see that the different font is applied. Below the text area, I've also have a radio button, and here I wanted to change the font as well. If you inspect the element, you will notice that you need to target the paragraph inside the ST radio element. So I've done that in the CSS file, and here I've updated the font family, the size and the color again. Okay, and last but not least, I also have some HTML text down here. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with the new Streamlit release, but I wanted to include it in case you didn't know. And by the way, I just realized instead of using Markdown, it should be better called HTML. So let me quickly fix that and also refresh our application. So as I said, in Streamlit you can also include some HTML. For that you can use the HTML element and inside you can write your HTML code. For example, here I have a paragraph with some bold text. Now and here's what I wanted to show you. Since we already have our CSS file, I gave this paragraph a class. And now in my CSS file I can target that class and change the things like the font family or size. As I said, this isn't related to the new feature we looked at earlier, but I thought it might be helpful for you to know that you can also do that. Okay guys, and that's basically all I have for you today. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video.